I'm Monica Thomas. I'm the Director of Social Work here at Goodwin House Alexandria. I know you all, but you may not know me. So, hi. I had a colleague ask me this week, why is the social worker doing a lecture on sleep? And I thought that was a good question and maybe a good way to start. The first is that I had a resident ask me to try and get someone to speak about sleep. And for reasons which will become obvious from the presentation, sleep experts are very, very busy people. And so it was hard to get someone. And this third reason I thought is that I've been wanting for some time to start like an occasional series of lectures on health-related issues, like nothing really scheduled, but every now and then we do something. So this is the first one that we're gonna do in that occasional series. It may only be occasionally every year, but we'll do it. We'll do it occasionally. And also the last reason is my job before this one was with a geriatrics practice called the Medical House Call Program in Washington, D.C. And we were part of the MedStar system and worked out of Washington Hospital Center. And in that job, we had residents, medical residents who came, and so we were always having to do lectures. And even the social workers were called upon to do lectures on particular topics. I did one on sexuality and aging, so maybe I can do that as one of our talks. But anyway, and so this is sort of in that vein, I am gonna try and present information on sleep. It is a vast subject, as you can imagine. So we're just touching on some points today that will be confined to an hour. So first, though, I was hoping that maybe you all would be able to help me out for the very beginning of it. I wanted to ask you some questions. The first is, could you all raise your hand if you've ever had trouble falling asleep? It's quite a bit, okay. How many people have had trouble staying asleep and have woken up in the middle of the night and been up for a while? Okay, all right. And how many of you have felt tired during the day after a full night's rest? Fewer people, okay. And then how many of you feel like you sleep better now than you did 30 years ago? Okay, you think you sleep better now? The same. Okay, how about when you were 30 years old? Nobody slept. Okay, all right, that's great. Those are my questions. Okay, those are my questions. Now we're gonna talk a little bit about some sleep myths. The first, so I want you guys, again, want your help. I'm waking the audience up before I put you to sleep. The first is alcohol improves your sleep. True or false? False, right, exactly, good. How about older adults need less sleep? Right, okay. You can get by on 4 or 5 hours in a night. Not me, yeah, exactly. Oh, snoring is never a sign of a medical condition. Okay, all right. And how about staying in bed helps you go back to sleep? There's more controversy to that one, but you're right. All of these are false, and we're going to talk about why they are all false during the time that I'm here. The last one is a little bit, I would say, a little bit more controversial, but we'll talk about it. Okay, so for our first slide is, what is the purpose of sleep? What does sleep accomplish? It's first, physical restoration. It allows your body to rest and rejuvenate during the nighttime. It also helps you repair your tissues. Also, if anybody wants copies of these slides, I'm happy to give them so you don't feel like you have to take notes. There's some things that I'm gonna say that aren't on the slides, but you don't have to take notes. I'll give you slides, don't worry about it. And it also helps you with your metabolism kind of remain in check. I always think that particular one about metabolism, I always notice if I don't sleep, I eat so much more the next day. I crave carbohydrates. I really want to eat sort of everything. And the reason for that is a real biological process that because I haven't slept properly, I need more fuel. And that also will also lead to being overweight and obesity if it's a chronic condition. We'll talk about that later. The other thing is that it keeps your immune system active. We all know that when we have a cold or we have the flu or a COVID, what do we crave? We crave sleeping because it's going to eventually help with our immune system to kick back into shape. The other thing it does is that it helps us regulate our emotions. It helps us keep our moods steady. It helps process things that we've experienced during the day. So it has that role as well. Let's see. Oh, and then also memory and cognition. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit and its role in memory cognition. But I think the thing about when you look at all these things that sleep does is that it is a highly productive and biologically essential activity that sustains our long-term health and well-being. I had to read that quote to you because I think that's a really important thing, is that we don't really know all the aspects of, that's one of the things that when you read a lot about sleep, you find out that they don't know as much as they know. So in some ways, there's so many aspects, mysterious aspects to sleep that they're not sure about. But that we know, is that it's a very important, essential activity. So here we go. The role of for our cognitive health is, so one of the things that it does is it kind of helps us process and store memories. So essentially, it takes your short-term memory and then it moves it into long-term storage, for lack of a better way of expressing it. That's one of the things that sleep does. It also helps you with your executive functioning. So the ability to organize and plan and make decisions or improve through sleeping. And also it removes a lot of the waste. We talk about, it helps, one of the things that is really wonderful in terms of preventing dementia is proper, consistent sleep. And part of that reason is because of sort of the waste removal that happens. And again, there are lots of risks if you don't sleep properly. I think we've all had that experience of you have a terrible night's sleep and your word retrieval is much more difficult than if you have slept well. You have a much more difficult time, remembering what it is that you're supposed to do. Whereas if you sleep well during the night, it's much easier to access those things. So, all right. So the stages of sleep, this slide, I'm going to stand here because it's a little bit, the way this slide I've done is a little misleading, so I'm going to take you through it. But I think the first thing is that, the first stage of sleep is that when you're gone to bed and hopefully you've been able to you're starting to fall asleep, you can feel that transition between waking and sleeping. Your body starts to slow down, your heart rate starts to slow. That's the first transition. And NREM is non-REM, non-rapid eye movement sleep. So that is the first stage. Second stage is light sleep. Again, your heart rate is slowing down, your brain activity is slowing down. And then the stage 3 is deep sleep. And deep sleep is where you really restore yourself in terms of tissue growth. Your immune system is really where you get the most you get a very restorative sleep. And then rapid eye movement sleep is dreaming sleep. It's the most active. Part of your brain is the most active during that portion of sleep. It is also it's thought that this is where our bodies sort of restore themselves. This is a very generalized statement that I'm making right now, but sort of restore themselves, and your mind restores itself through here. That's a very generalized statement, but that is. The other thing about this slide, which I wanted to explain, I think I'm supposed to be over here for the camera, so that I wanted to explain is that really you go through REM sleep is sort of usually after this, and then you go to deep sleep. And then what happens is that you have 3 to 5 cycles of this sleep through the night. So it's you might go through this through the night 3 to 5 times, depending on how much you sleep. And the other thing that's really interesting is that you tend to have more deep sleep early in the night and more REM sleep later in the night. So I think we've all had that experience of waking up and you can remember what you've dreamt that night before. I think most of us have had that experience. And that's the reason why, is because you're doing more REM sleep toward the waking hours than you are, I mean, like normal waking hours, like 6, 7 in the morning. And one study that I read I thought was really fascinating is that there was a nursing home that did a study on and ended up using this data to help them change their processes, because they would try, the late night staff had more availability to do some of the cleaning and some of the housework and everything. And so they would vacuum at like 4 or 5 in the morning. But if they vacuumed at 4 or 5 in the morning, they would wake everybody up because they were in the, in the REM sleep, which is easier to wake up out of. But then they started to do it at night, like in the early, like 11 o'clock at night after everyone had just fallen asleep. And because more people are in deep sleep at that point, they didn't wake anybody up. So, it's really fast. And I think we've all had, I don't know if you've had that experience, but I have a hockey playing husband, and he plays hockey really, really late at night. Wait, it's kind of crazy, but anyway. But if he comes in, like sort of an hour or two after I've been asleep, 2 hours after I've been asleep, I never hear him. I have no idea that he's sort of gone. But if he comes back really late, like 4 in the morning, it's definitely going to wake me up. So that's why, is because I'm in that deep sleep earlier in the night than I am later in the night. Who would go play hockey until 4 in the morning? But, anyway, but it's just to illustrate the point. All right, now we're going to go to changes to sleep as we age. So the first thing that happens is that deep sleep that we're talking about that really restores us physically diminishes. So the problem with that is then you feel less rested, less restored than you would in the past. That's number one. Number two, there's a lot more sleep fragmentation. And I think that you're waking up during the middle of the night is much more frequent. That is because you have to go to the bathroom more often. You may experience pain. You may have a medical condition or something that makes that happen. I'd like to, use the example of Lasix or furosemide, which is a diuretic that sometimes people use who are because of blood pressure issues. And, it's the kind of thing that even if you don't go to the bathroom for 2 or 3 hours, if you don't drink any water 2 or 3 hours prior to going to bed, it's still going to make you wake up in the middle of the night because that's what it's supposed to do. So anyway, that's one of those examples. The other thing that happens is the circadian rhythm changes. So you have your normal circadian rhythm shifts earlier. So you go to sleep earlier and wake up earlier, typically. Now, obviously, we're all individuals, and there are many people who love to get up at midday, and they will always get up at midday. But as a general population, older adults tend to shift earlier in the day. And then the last thing is that there's a lot more incidence of sleep disorders like insomnia and that sort of thing in people who are older. All righty. So I picked this guy out of the slides because he looks like someone who hasn't slept very well. So I kind of liked him. I'm a dog person. Also, he also may be the reason why you didn't sleep so well too, is the dog. So anyway, but so here are some things that, what are the effects of diminished sleep? The first is that you have a lot less energy. You don't feel as energetic as normal. The other is that you're going to be grumpy. You're going to maybe have, not be as easy to be around as you would normally be because of you're grumpy, that can lead to more stress in your relationships, and if you're difficult to be around. Also, particularly in older adults, it leads to more falls and more accidents. The accidents, though, it's amazing, like the statistics on how, I should have included that, but the statistics on how many car accidents are a result of lack of sleep. A lot of car accidents, and the problems with your memory we talked about before. Also, it can worsen your feelings of pain. Your perception and your feelings of pain. So if you're someone who has chronic pain and also are not able to sleep, that sort of compounds it and makes you have more pain. And then long term, it can lead to mood disorders like depression, anxiety. It can lead to obesity, because we talked about how you crave carbs and you eat more when you don't sleep. Also, hypertension and diabetes, and even strokes and heart attacks, depending on how serious your sleep disorder is. All right. So we're going to leave the dog now. All right. We have a cat later on, though, so I was balanced for you cat people. So now we're going to talk about sleep disorders and definitions. I have not included every sleep disorder that exists. I kind of hit on some of the most common ones. Particularly, we're going to talk more about insomnia and sleep apnea today. So the first thing is that insomnia is essentially either not being able to fall asleep at the beginning of the night or waking up and staying awake in the middle of the night. It's interesting to note there are two different kinds of insomnia. Acute insomnia is something where, let's say you have a family event that happens. Your family member or loved one is in the hospital. You're really worried about how they're going to do. And that night, and for a couple of nights until they stabilize, you have trouble sleeping and making it through the night. That's considered acute insomnia. To get like a chronic insomnia diagnosis, you actually have to experience 3 nights a week of having periods of wakefulness for 3 months. So that's the sort of classic definition. You also have to have the wakefulness is part of it, and feeling tired and having difficulty doing your normal tasks of daily living is another one of the criteria for insomnia as well. We're going to talk about some of the cures and things too. And then in sleep apnea is essentially the stopping of breathing and sometimes that stop can be up to 10 seconds of breathing that interrupts your sleep. And typically that's because as you go to sleep at night, our throat and tongue relaxes, and then it sort of traps the airway. And it disrupts the airway, and so air is not able to flow into your body the way it normally does. So that is the definition of sleep apnea. And restless leg syndrome is another one that happens as people age, where you have involuntary movements that you can't control in the middle of the night, and it wakes people up. And narcolepsy also. Narcolepsy is either excessive sleepiness in the middle of the day, or even sometimes people will just literally fall asleep in the middle of the day. So, all right. So here are some sleep disorder statistics. The 70 million Americans experience some sort of sleep disorder. That's quite. We have 350 million people, so that's quite a lot of people who are experiencing a sleep disorder. 41% of people who are 60 years or over have a sleep disorder, and 48% of people over 70 experience some form of sleep disorder. So with possible exception of a couple of people, I think that means that 50% of the people in this room could be having a sleep disorder. So it's a serious problem in the United States and in other places. So insomnia is the most common sleep disorder. Women are affected almost twice as much as men are affected by insomnia, which I thought was a really interesting statistic. There was also a recent NIH study that said that this is another dynamic in obesity, that women who do not sleep well have much more insulin resistant, have much more trouble processing their sugar in their system during the day, during the night, if they're not sleeping, and that is also another contributor to increased incidence of diabetes and obesity. So it's, it really does make such a difference. And the 25 million Americans who are thought to experience sleep apnea, that's not a verified statistic, but that's an extrapolation. I think a lot of people don't get themselves tested, so that's sort of an estimate of how many people are experiencing sleep apnea. All right, so how and when do you need to request medical help? I think like we talked about, for insomnia, you need to be able to know that you're having 3 nights a week of interrupted sleep for 3 months. So the best way to figure that out is to do a sleep diary. And on the sleep diary, it's good to check, to make sure you sort of document what time you went to sleep, whether you had trouble going to sleep. Then if you were awakened, if you woke up in the middle of the night, and how long you were awake, and then what time you woke up for good the next morning. I also think that to keep a true sleep diary, it's a good idea to talk about what happened that day. And we're going to talk a little bit about this in terms of environmental and lifestyle habits. But I think it's helpful for yourself to know, how much, when did you drink caffeine? How much chocolate did you have? What was your alcohol intake? All those kinds of things, because those might actually help you diagnose your own problem and what's causing this sleep disruption even before you get to the doctor. So anyway, I would just say add that to your diary. But then if you really figure out that you're having these true insomnia episodes 3 nights a week, it's time to go to the doctor. And there are lots of, we'll have a slide at the end too, there are lots of sleep experts in this area. And then for sleep apnea, the sort of diagnostic criteria is loud snoring. Not everybody that snores has sleep apnea, but it can be an indication of sleep apnea. The other thing is your partner's report of the fact that you are having interruptions in your breathing. They can tell, they're reading their book and you've gone to sleep before they have, and they can hear that you stop breathing for a while and then you start again. But also you yourself can experience that in like gasping for air or choking and waking yourself up. So that would be another symptom. And the other things are having a sense of having dry mouth, also having recurrent headaches in the morning. That's another sign. Irritability, there we are again. It's hard to be cheerful when you're not sleeping. And feeling exhausted despite the fact that you've slept a full night. So you think you've slept solidly from 10 to 6, but you feel tired all the time. I have two friends who in their late 50s, women friends, who were just both experiencing the same thing. And they were talking to each other, and one had already gone to a sleep doctor and figured out that she was experiencing sleep apnea. And the other one was like, that sounds just like me. And sure enough, she had sleep apnea too. So, because they were both experiencing that feeling of just feeling never rested. So, all right, so treatment options. I have some notes to myself. So treatment options, I think first thing that I want to do, which we're going to go through in just a second, is, it's good to really go through your lifestyle and environmental triggers. And we're going to do that in just a second to see whether or not it might be one of those lifestyle things that's interrupting your sleep and not true chronic insomnia. But then once you do, then, some people, like oftentimes medication is a first line. I think, it's not that it doesn't work for everybody, but I do think the one thing about medications is that sometimes those medications have their own negative side effects. They can make you feel as groggy as you felt before you started taking them. So, because they have sometimes a lasting feeling in your body. So you need to, if your physician says that you should try this first, but if you really are not getting any relief from that feeling of chronic tiredness, then take that into consideration, because it is a common thing. There's also a list. This is kind of very old school geriatrics, so excuse me. This is part of what happens when you work with a geriatrics practice for a long time. There's something called the Beers list, which is the list of medications that are contraindicated for people, 65 or over. And a lot of those medications that are given to people for sleep, like Ambien, are on that Beers list because they contribute to increased falls. They, make people less able to concentrate, all those kinds of things. So it's good to think about that for a while. But consult your doctor. I'm not a doctor. And then the other thing is that CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And that is something that will work for a lot of people. A lot of times, what is causing insomnia is anxiety. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But it is one of the things that is the greatest contributor to insomnia. And so someone who's a cognitive behavioral therapist can really work with you, first of all, to come up with some techniques when you're up in the middle of the night, trying to get back to sleep and you can't stop worrying, how to manage that, but also in general to work with you around anxiety. And also sleep therapists will also work with you on behavioral adaptations that you can make to try and improve your sleep as well. It's, I think this is a simple example, but like one of the examples is that when you're someone who goes to bed at 10 o'clock and wakes up at 6, if you are up from 2 to 4 in the morning, I think we all have the natural tendency to say, I'm going to sleep a little bit later to make up for that sleep that I missed. But the sleep therapist will tell you, get up, get going at 6 o'clock, keep your same rhythm going. And so that's a simple example of the kind of thing they might do with you. And then for sleep apnea, the CPAP, which is a continuous positive air pressure, is the first line, usually, solution for sleep apnea. And what it does essentially is you wear it as a mask, and there's a tube that essentially takes room air and filters it, and then brings it to you in a more steady flow, like a forced air steady flow, so that the way it keeps your mouth more open, and you get more consistent air than you do if you yourself are just, if you're sleeping without it. So that's usually the first line of treatment. And then the other thing that people will use are these oral appliance therapy. I called them a dental guard, but they're actually technically oral appliance therapy. And it's essentially something that a dentist makes that specializes in this. And you put it in your mouth, and it keeps your jaw in a different position so that the air can flow in more effectively. So that's another way. They do sometimes use medication, and then also surgery sometimes in dire circumstances. And then also there are these implantable devices. Right now, the only one that's FDA approved is something called Inspire. And Inspire the technical term is hypoglossal nerve stimulant device. And essentially what it does is that it stimulates a nerve that makes you move your tongue so that air can flow in better while you're sleeping. So anyway, okay, that's good. Okay. Now we're going to get to the environmental and the lifestyle things that you might be able to, that you should try first. before you seek help from a doctor, because some of these things might be the things that are making you not be able to sleep well first. And then and if that doesn't work, then you can go seek help. So here we go. So tips for improving sleep. I think the first one is I just talked about, keep the same schedule. So if you're a 10 to bed, 6 in the morning to rise, or 7 in the morning to rise, then that's the best. Oh, and by the way, we all need, regardless of age, 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. So I didn't say that earlier, but anyway, if you're for the person, really try and keep that schedule for yourself. So even if you wake up in the middle of the night, or it's on the weekend and you want to sleep later, it's best to get up as close to your normal cycle as possible, because that helps your body stay in sync. And so it doesn't confuse it and make it have more trouble. That's a hard one to do. I know personally on the weekend, I have a hard time getting up at 6 a.m. like I do the rest of the week. Who wants to get up at 6 a.m.? It's still dark. So anyway, but try and keep it as close to possible. The second thing is to try and have a restful, relaxing bedtime. Get away from the screens at least an hour before you go to bed. Have a nice, comfortable, dark, cool environment to sleep in, because that makes. And also do some relaxing. Certainly reading a book is a very good thing. It doesn't involve a screen. I mean, just read a book on a regular book. You can listen to music. All those things are important. The other thing is caffeine. It's actually surprising. One of the recommendations in all this things that I read is that you should not drink any caffeine for 10 hours before you go to sleep. I personally was shocked by that one. It's a good thing to know, but 10 hours before. So if you're someone who drinks 2 morning coffees in the morning, and then you drink water or whatever, juice or whatever you like that doesn't have caffeine for the rest of the day, you're totally fine. But if you're someone who has coffee with dinner and you're having trouble sleeping, you should probably look at that and see if you can change it. The other thing is that, coffee and soda are not the only thing that have caffeine. Chocolate desserts have caffeine, regular chocolate. So if you're having that really delicious, chocolate cake they have down, have that in the middle of the day, not at the end of the day, because it could disrupt your sleep. And light exposure. I think this is really interesting that one of the, in terms of screens, it's very important. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to tell you about this in just a second, so I'll be quiet. And yeah, that's okay. All right, so now we're going to talk about and alcohol. This is another thing that I think can play a real role in sleep disruption is drinking too close to bedtime. I also want to just say that, the old CDC's guidelines on alcohol consumption, that after you're 65, your body does not process alcohol the way it did when you were young. So if you in your 40s drank 2 glasses of wine every day, you're not going to be able to process that alcohol in the same way. It's going to take longer for your body to get rid of it. So it's something to consider. And so they give so first of all, look at how much you're drinking. And secondly, think about when you're drinking it. Actually, to be honest, the happy hours here are probably the right time to have an alcohol drink, because you at least 3 hours before you go to bed to get that alcohol out of your system. So if you go have a drink at 4 o'clock and you go to bed at 10 o'clock, you should be okay. Now, if you have 3 at 4 o'clock, you might have more problems. So just as an example, the social worker, she has to have those moments, right, where she, the other thing that's important is getting daily exercise, or at least several times a week exercise, really helps with your sleep quality. It'll make you sleep more, let you go to sleep better. It gets you to sleep. The quality of your sleep is better, but you can't do that too close to when you're going to bed. So again, that 3-hour rule also applies here, because you're going to be too revved up. Your And so if you like to go to the gym at 7 o'clock because no one is there at 7 o'clock, but you're really having trouble going to sleep, you might want to look at that and think about going earlier in the day. So, okay. And also access to light in the morning. It is, if you're one of those people who likes to sleep really late, but you're having trouble, sleep late into the day, you're having really a lot of trouble. It could be because of your exposure to light, because particularly that early morning blue light, walking. I'm a person who walks in the morning before I come here. And it's wonderful. The light comes up, the sun rises. It's a beautiful time to be outside. But that's the light is really helpful to triggering your circadian rhythm to get going. And so that's an important thing to try and give yourself access to that light. And also consequentially, the light that comes off the screen is also that blue light. So that's part of the reason if you're doing your screens, I'm reading my New York Times right before I go to bed and I may have trouble going to sleep. It's because that same blue light is telling me, oh, it's time to get up. It's not time to go to sleep. So anyway, it's an interesting juxtaposition, I think. Also, the other thing I think is if you have a fire alarm, it's hard to go to sleep, to use a Goodwin House example. But also sometimes we have partners or neighbor playing television, all of those things. So you can try just using earplugs, but the company Bose also creates these earplugs that will play just inside your ears. They'll play, like waterfalls and waves, just white noise, the wind. And that is, that way your partner doesn't hear that at all. You're the one who hears it, but it also keeps you from hearing the partner snoring. But those are cool because you can actually, they're controlled on your cell phone, and you can pick whichever, what volume you want and what program you want. Anyway, it's my product placement of the lecture. So then the other thing too is that there's a new concept in popular culture called a sleep divorce. And you guys have probably seen these articles. Have you seen these articles about sleep divorce? No? Okay, well, I'll tell you about it then. So the idea is that if you have a partner, you're married or you're partnered with someone and they are disrupting your sleep, that you might consider sleeping in another room. Spend time with them, do whatever activities you wish to prior to going to sleep. But then when it's really time to go to sleep, move and sleep in a separate room. That's another possibility. And the people who write about this, Cameron Diaz being one of them, says that it vastly improves the quality of the relationship too. I don't know whether it does or not, but anyway, that's her plug. So that's another possibility. I know not everybody has 2-bedroom apartments here, but something to consider. And then nutrition makes a big difference in a couple of ways. First, it's good to eat, wholesome food, but also to eat it on a regular schedule, that helps your circadian rhythm sort of stay in sync. And so then when you're ready to go to sleep, you've sort of cycled through your regular rhythms and you're ready to go to sleep. And secondly, to really consider not having a very large meal close to the time that you're going to go to sleep. If you have acid reflux, that can contribute and make it hard to go to sleep, but also it will just make you full and just makes it much more difficult to get some proper rest. And naps. So naps are not to be avoided, but they should be limited in their time. You don't want to take a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day because that'll just wreck you for the nighttime. Shorter naps, 25 minutes, 20 minutes, something below is a better way to get rest. Salvador Dali, we always hear about Salvador Dali used to put a pen in his mouth, and then when he would nod off and then the pen would fall out, and then he would know it was time to get up because he had sort of had a little bit of a rest, but then he would wake up. I probably got that story a little bit wrong, but that's the basic idea. And the other thing about naps is when you have them. So you're much better off if you're tired having a nap in the late morning or very early afternoon. Do not have a nap after 3 o'clock, or you'll just be sunk for the night. So that's another thing to think about. All right. So once awake, this is for people who experience insomnia in the middle of the night. They wake up and are up for a couple of hours. These are a couple of tips of what to do. First of all, for those of you who have that experience, that is called terminal insomnia, for those of you who have always wondered. And so one of the things is don't pick up your phone because of that same idea that we were talking about with the blue light. Don't pick up your phone or an iPad or a computer. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's hard not to do, but don't do it. Don't look at the clock because that'll just kind of, you'll start to obsess. But if you feel like you've been in bed for about 20 minutes and you haven't been able to go back to sleep, then the experts recommend that you get out of bed, you go somewhere that is very, use yellow, dim light, and either do something like read a book, listen to music, do some meditation, some guided meditation exercises, do something like that. That will help calm you, and wait until you're starting to experience the sense of sleepiness, and then return to your bed to go to sleep. The reason for that is because if you stay in bed and you toss and turn and you're restless, you're going to start to associate being in bed with being restless, and you feel frustrated. I have to say that I personally, through personal experience, don't completely agree with this theory, because I think sometimes it actually prolongs the process. I'll go, if I've tried this before, where I go out to the living room and, I'm there for a while, and then I still have those 2 hours of being tossing and turning. So anyway, that's for it's worth. That's my own personal experience. As I've said, we're all individuals, and what happens with us is different, so it's worth a try. The experts say you should get out of bed. And then if you are awake, these are some things to think about. Again, as I said, remove yourself and get a location. But there's some other tricks that you can do to try and calm your mind, because a lot of times what has woken you up is anxiety or worry about something. It may be a short-term worry, like we talked about your family member who's in the hospital. It may just be, a sense of overwhelming anxiety. And so what you really need to do is to try and get your mind off those things that are making you worry, whatever they are. And so there's a technique called cognitive shuffling. And that is, you think of a random word, like, you came to a lecture today. So take lecture, and then think of as many words as you can with the letter L. And when you exhaust those, go to the letter E, then go C, T, you get the idea. And so the idea about that is that it's going to keep you from ruminating. It's going to keep you from obsessing about whatever you're worried about. It'll break that cycle for you and make you concentrate on something else. So that's one technique you could use. And then other things are personalized things. If you're someone who likes to journal, or again, you like to, you have a infuser with lavender smells, and that's comforting to you when you go and sit in another part of the room. That will be helpful. This is probably more than you guys need to know about me, but I'm going to tell you my technique for when I have trouble sleeping. I'm sorry to put you through this, but I do this weird thing where I take all the furniture in my house and I put it in other people's houses, and it's a great thing because I do like my aunt's house that I went to when I was a child, or my grandmother's house, or my friend down the street, and I put all the furniture and I think, well, would that sofa look better there, or would that picture look better there? And I know it sounds weird. But I do every single room in the house, and sometimes I have, not enough furniture, or sometimes I have too much furniture. And anyway, it's more than you need to know about me, but it so works. And then I stopped thinking about, that I have to do the sleep lecture today and stand in front of people and do public speaking. So anyway, just might work for you all too. But I guess what I'm trying to say with that example is that come up with your own personal version of getting out of your repetitive cycle of thought concerns. So anyway, and then you guys have probably also heard about this 4-7-8 breathing exercise, but I'm going to put you through it right now just so that you have another possibility. So one of the other things to do is an idea of like trying not to think about things and to concentrate on your own breathing. So what you're going to do is you're going to inhale for 4, you're going to hold for 7, and then you're going to exhale for 8. And the one thing about this is that you want to do as deep a breath as you possibly can, and sort of hold on it, like get your diaphragm involved in that deep breath. Okay, so now we're going to do it, and everybody is an individual. If you can't hold your breath for 7, we don't want to have to call the clinic, so just do whatever you're capable of. So, all right. So, okay, so ready? First, inhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so the and so the idea about that is that you do that repeatedly to help you break your cycle of ruminating. So you do that many, many times. And so, that's just another tool that maybe will help you all. So, all right, now, if you have done all this assessment of your personal, your own lifestyle choices and your environment, and you are still really having serious sleep problems, then the next thing to do is to go see a doctor. And we in this area have quite a few sleep medicine doctors, and we also have the NIH, which has a sleep disorders research lab, so that's another possibility. But so these physicians, I have to be honest and tell you that I don't personally have experience with any of them, but Washingtonian does the top doctors, and so I got the list from there, and I did it in order of people who were closest to Goodwin House of Alexandria, sort of in geographic location. So there's no ranking to them; it's just their closest. But at least it gives you some people to think about. And it's interesting because they're a combination of pulmonologists and neurologists, usually, who are also specializing in sleep medicine. So, I thought that was an interesting conclusion. So, and, we'll see. But anyway, if you, has anybody ever had an experience with any of these physicians? You have. How did it go? Oh, okay, good. That's great. Yes, you too. Okay, and did it go well? Okay, good. All right, good. Glad to hear that. That's nice. All right. And so now we are at questions. Any questions? Yes.
Are you saying that the benefits of sleeping do not occur when you're napping, so a nap is not as good as sleeping?
I think the benefits of napping, it does help you to nap. It does, absolutely. It's restorative it's just that if you're, I think if you're going to go to sleep at night, you have to be careful with napping because it can disrupt that sleep and then, lead to frustration and less profound sleep at night. And you are probably, if you're napping, it is unlikely that unless you do a really long nap, that you're getting to the really deep sleep. So it's probably better to sleep at night, I would say. Yeah. But that's a good question. Go ahead.
What do you think of acupuncture for sleep?
I think acupuncture, I'm not sure. That's a good idea. I didn't put that as one of my modalities. I'm not sure. I don't know how to answer that question.
Getting it, and I'm not sure whether it's working or not.
Okay. Are you sleeping better?
A little bit.
Okay. All right. Acupuncture as a modality for sleeping better. Yeah. I don't have any experience of that. We should have to get a physician. James Hoban, you're. I'll get you.
Excellent talk. Absolutely loved it, Monica. But when I walked in the room and it was set for 2:00, I thought she was sending us a signal to skip the nap today. But I'm not going to question her motivations. I do have a question, however, about dreaming. I am a hyperactive dreamer. It bores Sheila to crazy when I try to tell her any of them. But can you talk a little bit about that function of dreaming and what is going on in the head? And they tend to be some overly exciting, but mostly fun.
I had a group right before this, and I told them the one thing I felt like I didn't do enough on was dreaming, so I apologize. But I think one of the things is that it is a place where it helps you to regulate your emotions and process what's happened in the day before. It does have that function for you, and to help you manage mood and the whole idea of REM sleep. I think sometimes it acts things out for you in a way that it's supportive of your mental health. But other than that, next time I'm going to talk about dreams a lot more. I am. I promise. I said to them, I didn't do a lot on dreams. All right, someone here, Barbara.
I'm wondering whether it doesn't also help to have fresh air. Oxygenated window open before you go to sleep, or maybe in between. I know that it helps me.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I think particularly cooler environments are much more helpful and much better for sleeping. So, I know either open window or decreasing the temperature in your bedroom is very important. Absolutely. Yep.
Just a note to add about resources. Because sleep apnea is often associated with heart issues, Virginia Heart has at least two sleep specialists on staff.
That's great. That's great. Cardiologists too. All right. Anybody else? Oh, sorry.
The question about dreaming triggers a question about, for example, melatonin is one of the things that's touted as something to help with sleep. Well, also melatonin, so I've read, and I've noticed that myself. I use melatonin as a sleep aid, and it does. You get more vivid dreams. Some of them completely unrelated to anything in your lifestyle. You wonder where that's coming from. But I don't know whether that. Do you have any thoughts about the role of melatonin as a sleep aid? I think I probably take too much of it, for example, but others don't. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think because it is a more natural substance, and so I know physicians usually use that as a first line when they're trying to address someone's concerns. There's been some more controversy now than there was in the past about whether it really is a good idea. She's going to address that. Okay.
Sorry, but that's what I was going to add, is that I take something, I subscribe to a couple of health newsletters, and both the Harvard newsletter and the Consumer Reports health newsletter have warnings about long-term use of melatonin regarding heart issues.
Great. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Yes.
I would say out of 10 nights, 9 of them I go to bed and I say, Jane, go to sleep, and Jane goes to sleep. The other one I have a little trouble with, but my main problem of late is that I want to sleep all the time. I mean, when it's time to get up, I've had 8 to 10 hours sleep. That should be enough sleep for anybody. But boy, I hate getting out of my bed. It's just a comfort zone. And another thing, someone mentioned dreams. I dream every single night, and they are dreams so far away from me. They're not like me. There's some of them are pretty frightening. Fortunately, I do wake up. Anyway, that's my problem.
Thank you. And I do think that sometimes, as people age, certainly, that the amount you sleep can also increase for a variety of reasons. One, it may be due to the fact that, you're not getting in deep sleep as much as you did before, so you need more sleep to be able to feel the same way. And it also can be related to a variety of health concerns also that make people sleep more. So.
You said something earlier about carbohydrates,
Yes.
and I try to eat a big breakfast and a big lunch and not so much for dinner. But that lunch makes me very sleepy. So I try to do that, having more to keep my weight down. I try to do it this way. But then I sleep too much in the afternoon. I don't have, and I don't like it. And I don't have trouble going to sleep, but I have dreams. But I always can, my dreams are always connected with something that happened or that I read. They are not I always can dream bad, but the carbohydrates, does that
Could that contribute to your dreams? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't know. Like the Weight Watching, did I understand you that carbohydrates keep you from sleeping or make you sleeping?
Oh, they can sometimes make you sleepy, yes, no, I was saying that you crave carbohydrates when you haven't slept enough. Like it's quick
Then I misunderstood.
yeah, quick energy.
So that isn't all that important. But it was important to me. I misunderstood. Thank you.
It's interesting, everybody's different dreams. It's very interesting to hear. Does anybody fly when they dream? Fly, yeah. Ah, okay. Yeah. Here you go.
I know it for a fact that I sleepwalk because I was in my bedroom and I took a walk out on a country road with my wife who was deceased, and I saw a hardware store and I knew I needed 2 certain kinds of bolts. I went in to the counter, to the store, picked up what I wanted, went to the counter. It took forever. There were thousands of people lined up, and then the lights went out. And I looked, and there was light under this door. And I thought, okay, I put down the bolts, went to that door, opened it, and to my surprise, I was at the other end of the hall. And
In Dominion. Yes. Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, my goodness. We need to tell the staff that story. We do. All right. Well, I have, we're almost, anybody have a last question or comment? It's actually interesting. We could have a whole talk about dreams for sure. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and listening to me. Thank you so much.